All right, what up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Today on the show, we have Shannon Swanson, who is a therapist specializing in trauma and a health coach for women struggling with fear, insecurities, and unworthiness, keeping them from living the life they truly want. Shannon, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on, and we'd like to jump right in. So if you could start with telling us a little bit more about yourself and what you like to do for fun, that'd be great.
Oh gosh. Well, yeah, like you introduced me, I am a therapist and a health coach, and I was doing that career for 20 years, moved into management, and sometimes in life we start with something we want to do and it can evolve into something you weren't really looking that you really wanted to do. And so I ended up in management. I was the quality assurance director in the end, and I was miserable. So I switched course and got my certification in health coaching due to my own personal experience with my thyroid, and was able to heal myself. And then combined with my own personal experience in the last 3 years, as I'm sure has happened to a lot of people, I now have completely pivoted and combined all of that to help women, and looking into their own limiting beliefs and what's stopping them from living the lives they want to live. And what do I do for fun? I live in Oregon, so one of my favorite things to do is to be outside in nature and a lot of hiking. It's one of my favorite things to do.
I love it. I love it. And tell us a little bit about your personal story with your thyroid and how the healing happened, the kind of the adversity you went through, if you don't mind diving into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working, 10, 12-hour days, really stressful, and going through perimenopause, and started to have all the symptoms that a lot of women have going through that phase. And it's very normalized for us that this is just something you have to live with. And had a day at work where I was really suffering, really severe brain fog. Go to the doctor, end up getting diagnosed with hypothyroidism. And it was really serendipitous because at the same time I was listening to this doctor who practices holistic medicine was talking about specifically the thyroid and what ends up happening to cause thyroid issues. I was also on the phone with my doctor who was wanting to prescribe me with medications. And what was the real kind of defining moment for me is when I asked, well, why is this happening to me? Like, what happened to my thyroid? And I was told, well, we don't know the root cause. Like I was really kind of seen as kind of a bit crazy that I would dare ask that question, like, what is at the root of this? There has to be a cause. So I decided to not do medications. I wanted to get to the root cause and find an answer, which is what I started to do. And I ended up finding out that it was dietary, very much dietary related, gluten being a huge piece, sugar being huge, and stress. Stress wreaks havoc on your hormones. It's one of the top issues that women have, and I would say men as well. And ended up feeling so much better with changing my diet, taking supplements that I was in dire need of, stopped gluten, which was a huge game changer for me, and reduced my stress, starting meditation. And all of that combined changed my life. And so I started talking to anyone who would listen, and then was on some website and happened to see something for the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. Ended up going back to school and got my certification to become a health coach, because I was so passionate now to want to really teach people about how they could heal themselves through natural means, because it really is real.
Mm. And is the thyroid like a hormone regulator? What function does it serve?
Well, everything is interconnected in terms of your endocrine system. And the thyroid is responsible for your body temperature, for your heart rate, for your metabolism, so many functions, and your weight management through metabolism. And so it's really, really important. And you can have one of two things. You can have hyperthyroidism, which is where you have, everything's fast, you metabolize things very quickly. And with hypothyroidism, it's slow, everything's very slow, everything's slowed way down. And so both can be caused by an autoimmunity. For me, it was Hashimoto's, which I discovered later. But it's a very important function. And a lot of women sometimes don't realize that I would say it's the majority of women who end up diagnosed with hypothyroid or a thyroid issue. And sometimes it can happen later in life, but also it can happen after pregnancy. So that's something that has happened with some friends of mine, that they seem to be okay. And then after giving birth, they started having thyroid issues. So it's definitely one that you want to look into if you're having definitely struggling with weight loss, or you can't seem to gain weight. If you are having heart palpitations and brain fog, fatigue, I mean, there's so many symptoms and you're not finding an answer. What's really important for women to know particularly is when you do go to the doctor, ask to have your thyroid tested, because it's not something that's offered. And when you do ask, make sure you ask for a full panel where they test all of the thyroid hormones, because they don't tend to. They usually only test the THC hormone. I mean, the THC hormone.
I gotcha. Thanks for really diving
Yeah.
in there and being a little vulnerable about your past and kind of how you came through that. And so it sounds like you solved it through a combination of fixing some things on the nutritional side, but also dealing with your stress through meditation. And were there any
Yeah.
other means of dealing with stress, or was it just meditation?
I would say exercise is huge. So I would say number one for women is resistance training, because you start to lose a lot of bone mass as you age. And I want to say it's like 3% every year, somewhere around there, if I remember this statistic. But it's really, really, really serious. Yeah. Yeah, you
Right.
really want to, I mean, muscle mass, not bone mass, muscle mass. That's what I meant to say. And so, and it's exponential. So I think we what's been so popular in the last few years is HIIT exercise, and doing these workouts that are really quick in 20 minutes where you go really hard, which is fine because people are very attracted to the time saving aspect of that. But just cardio is not something that you want to do. You want to definitely make it resistance training big time, and it's huge for your hormonal imbalance as well. I mean, I can't say enough, but it's huge for stress relief, it's huge for your sleep, and it's definitely important for your hormone balance. And it's not just women, it's men as well.
And so when you're talking resistance training, are you speaking about lifting weights, or are there other forms as well?
Yes. Yes, because I am also a personal trainer. I'm not really working in that aspect anymore, but I was for a time, yes. But resistance training, yes, lifting weights, hitting those weights is one of the best things you can do as you age. It is, I mean, I can shout that from the rooftops.
Pump the iron. Pump the iron.
Pump that iron.
Well, awesome, Shannon. Tell us a little bit more. So we got a good idea of your story, but tell us about your
Mhm.
motivation today. What gets you up and keeps you going every day?
Honestly, through my path, so I left my job and started my coaching business, and then I found myself really not into it. I didn't want to talk about food anymore or hormones anymore. And coupled with everything that's happened over the last 3 years, my marriage ended. And I've just had so much change, as I know a lot of people have in the last 3 years. So my life kind of like did a 180. And I started thinking about, okay, so what is it that brings you joy? Like, what at the heart of it? Because once I stepped away from the mental health field, I really didn't want anything to do with it for quite some time, to be honest. I think I was really burned out, and just the system itself. And started thinking, what brings me joy at the end of the day? It's really helping people, being in a therapy room and helping people see themselves, believe in themselves. And so I started to think about, okay, what's the common thread with being a therapist and then becoming a coach and my own experience, and then wove them together to where now I really want to help women, kind of get away from the rules of the way we're supposed to live life. Grow up, go to school, graduate, go to high school, meet your partner, buy the house, white picket fence, have the 2.5 children, have your career, have it all, have it all, have it all. And we're driving ourselves into the ground. And so it's really helping women understand that we don't all want the same things, and that's okay. And the rules of the way we're supposed to live and what's expected of us need to be thrown out, and to really help women just start to identify the stories that keep them stuck and do away with those and understand where they come from, and start to shift into what do I want? Because I think for women, there's a lot of pressure to put everybody else before us, our partners, our children, our careers, our home, our community, everything. And it's for women, you're very much seen, I think still to a point, I would say, at least that's my perspective, is very selfish if you want to make your life just about you. So it's really teaching women to believe in themselves again and follow their dreams. And what do you want in your life? So you can, dream big and do whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what are some of those stories that you found, A, have held you back as you've gone through this journey yourself, but also are common to holding other women back as well?
I would say number one is worthiness, that there's so many stories that start in childhood with our own, because I believe that everybody walking the planet has some kind of trauma.
Yep.
And we often think of trauma being this big catastrophic event, and that it's always somebody else because, they had this huge event happen, when really all of us have experienced it on some level. And it's these little compounding moments throughout our lives that start to build and build and build, coupled with living in a society where we're taught not to really go within, sit with our emotions and feel them. We're taught distraction, not to mention living in a society where we are distracted with media and this fast-paced culture we live in. And so you start to, you've got this kind of soup of all of these stories that start to get created, and people's projection of their own traumas onto us. And so what ends up happening is, and one of the things I talk about a lot is that you are not your defense mechanisms. So when we grow up in childhoods where our own parents were not, because I know for me at my age, I'm in my 50s, and my parents for sure were not taught how to handle their own emotions and cope with their emotions. It wasn't something that they talked about a lot, and you definitely didn't go to therapy. It's just, it wasn't something you did. And so, it's no one's fault, but those traumas get projected onto kids, and then that starts the story. And then if you are not able to have processed those traumas or deal with your own emotions, you are now growing up as an adult, where you can get triggered. And then those defense mechanisms get created to protect us from being hurt again. And then what happens is that through relationship with other people, we get triggered, and then we show our defense mechanisms, and then people react to the defense mechanisms, and then we internalize that as if that's who we are, and then the story further gets perpetuated. So it's really breaking them down to kind of start with, when I get triggered, and it could be a myriad of ways in the world, what's going on in the world, a lot of fear, a lot of, through relationship, I'm not good enough for my partner, whatever the story is, and really feeling into that and starting to connect the dots. Like, where's this emotion coming from? What are the thoughts that are connected to it? And how is it related to my past? But doing so in a way where there's no judgment, there's no shame. And if you can really become more of a curious, objective observer, as I call it, of yourself, then it opens up the door for you to just kind of really take a look at what's going on with you without all the judgment, because there's so much judgment already in the world, to give yourself space to start to heal.
And removing judgment, I feel like it's a hard thing to do. It's hard to do, we judge other people. It's hard to stop judging other people. But then when it comes to ourselves, I think it's like, honestly, 20 steps harder to stop judging oneself. So what would you say to that person who like sees themselves and they're like, I know you say don't judge myself, but the stuff that's in me is disgusting. How can I not?
What I would say is you have to start to, it takes time to really change that story, to really start to believe it yourself. But what I would say is that you have to understand that we are not our experiences, that it's really starting to just change and shift your perspective. And it is a process, because I think a lot of people think when we think of healing, it's a trajectory, that is this linear process, that I started A and ended F, when really it's a few steps forward, a couple steps back, and trying new ways of being that you haven't done before. And it really starts with shifting your perspective and understanding that the things that have happened to you don't define you. They're just experiences, but they're not really who you are. And you really had no control over what happened to you. So if you were abused, it's not a reflection of who you are as a being. You didn't ask for it. It's not your fault. You didn't deserve it. But it did that, but that experience did leave some mark in terms of unprocessed emotions or the way that you perceived the incident. Because a lot with children, what happens is that they don't have the developmental understanding to know what's happening. And a child who's 6 isn't going to stop and say, oh, well, this is happening because my parent has unprocessed trauma. No, they're going to take it in as, oh, this is happening because I'm a bad kid. It's my fault. I've done something. Well, if those thoughts and stories and those judgments of ourselves aren't attended to early on, then they are carried through into our adulthood, and we still believe those things. And so it's really starting to understand, where did the story start? And is it really true? And try to look at yourself through that lens. You really can start to drop the judgment, because it's really ultimately not who you are. It's an experience that's just still sitting with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that switch in the perspective and it being a process, because it's gonna, like, I feel like part of the process, at least for me, was like genuinely actually just changing my thoughts, or like thinking thoughts that I wanted to believe but didn't quite believe yet. And
Yeah.
so one of the biggest things was like just thinking that I am loved,
Yes.
like just in general, and worth loving. Like to think that thought over and over, and that there are people that love me, and then trying to recognize where people have loved me. It was like a completely different perspective shift, and you start catching things in life that you didn't catch before. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so I really like that description of it. Well, awesome, Shannon. Let's go ahead and jump into your dreams and goals now. Tell us about your vision for your business and your life.
Oh, the vision for my business is to just keep growing. I have a membership, and it's a community for women. And really, my dream is just to build this community for women, this membership, my business, where I serve women to help them really to understand that they don't need anything outside of themselves. Because I think as a therapist, one of the biggest things I always have lived by is I always wanted to, especially with adult clients, realize that from the time you walk in the door, the office with me, I want to help you understand that you won't need me anymore. I don't want you to need me. I want you to know that whatever you need always it's inside of yourself. And so that's one of the biggest messages I want to get to all people, but women in particular, is that you don't need anything outside of you. You can always find it here. But to grow my business in that way as much as possible, to help as many people as I can. And eventually I would love to be able to start a charity and have a portion of what I have go to charity. And then in terms of my dreams for myself, it's just to keep going and travel the world, and very simple person in that way.
Yeah,
That's the gist of it. Buy land one day, live out, have my land, be surrounded by my animals, and live in peace, like I
yeah.
think a lot of us would like.
For sure, for sure. Tell us a bit more about the charity. What would the charity entail? How much money would you like to donate to it per year, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh my gosh. I think, I have different ideas. I haven't totally landed on one. I have always had an affinity to elephants. And so I would love to do something around donating having a charity around elephants, working in some way, but also children, anything that can help children. Because the foster care system, just, I know here in this state, is in dire need. And I think that's true all over this country for sure, but some way to help kids in that way, in terms of that system. In terms of how much, I couldn't possibly tell you right now. It's just a very tiny dream thought. And then hopefully one day it will expand. And as things grow, it'll get clear.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Is that the same way for the kind of number of women you want to impact or the size of your membership? Right now, it's just kind of where it's at, and you're just hoping that dream will grow, or do you have a specific number of women in mind, a specific revenue goal, or whatever it may be for the
I
membership?
Yeah, I don't think I have a revenue goal or a number. I think for me, it's just to be of service to as many people as I can. There's no limit. And I just see it as it's going to evolve the way that it's supposed to. And who's supposed to come to be will. But so I don't really have a number in mind. I'm just kind of taking it as it comes with the goal to help as many people as I can and then just see how it evolves.
What is the wildest number that you can set
Oh,
put on it?
God, you know, it's so interesting how in asking that question, that's really hard to answer. You know, what's interesting, what's coming up for me is how dare I even mention that number? Isn't that an interesting thing that's coming? Isn't that interesting? You know, when we're talking about limiting beliefs, you know, I honestly, if to dream big, I don't know. I think for me, it would be for my business. I don't know. I'm really struggling to answer that question. I think enough for me to be able to support myself, and just have the life that I want, which is to buy land and have my very small house, live efficiently, and be able to continue doing what I'm doing and have enough money to be able to just keep growing the business. So I don't know what number I would put on that.
I gotcha. I gotcha. I'm trying to figure out if I can ask some questions to hone it down without getting like too in the
Okay.
weeds of the business, you know. We'd have to go
Yeah.
line by line, how much revenue each person brings in. um,
I
I
mean,
love it.
revenue for me, if I was going to grow big enough for revenue for me, it would be, I mean, I don't have a number. I guess 100,000. I mean, I don't know. I'm just
A
literally
year, a
thinking in
month, a
terms
week?
of a year.
Gotcha.
I would say, I mean, and I'm probably thinking small for a lot of people who are listening. They're probably like, well, girl, you need to reach a little but honestly, and I know I don't want to sound so trite and like I'm some Pollyanna, but quite honestly, for me, in terms of revenue for myself, it's just to be able to live how I want to live and not grand. I don't need to have some expensive car. I'm not into, having some giant mansion. Those are not my dreams. My dreams are honestly to have land, and to just live away. And yeah, yeah.
How many women would need to be in the membership for you to make 100K per year? If you feel comfortable sharing that. If you
Oh
don't, we can
gosh.
move on.
I would probably say probably 100 to 200, possibly
All right.
somewhere in that ballpark. I'm taking a wild guess if I were to do my calculations. Yeah.
All right. I feel that. How about, and you can say no to this for sure. We make the goal 2,000 members for your membership.
I would love that goal. Let's go.
All right.
That's fantastic.
And hit 2,000 members. What date do you want to hit that by?
That's a really good question. If we were to really go for it, I would say a year from now.
A year from now. There we go.
Mhm.
Cool. By March 2024.
Mhm.
I love it. I love
Yeah, that out to the universe.
it. Awesome. Well, we're actually about to bring it back to you with these next couple questions. Um, what are the top 1 to 2 skills that you need to develop right now to get that membership to 2,000 members within the next year?
Ooh, I would just say definitely the skills in marketing. And I have people who I've hired that are helping me with the marketing. But I think, when I graduated from IIN, when I became a health coach, you know, it's a great program, but I think the thing that a lot of us come out of different people who become life coaches, it's made to sound so simple to start your business. And you do not realize the extent of how incredibly important marketing is. And I'm sure people who are listening to this who are in marketing and business are like, yeah. But when you don't come from that background, I'm just a therapist, you just don't understand the magnitude of the importance of it. And I think for me, the biggest lesson was not doing it sooner,
Oh yeah.
because I'm finally starting to see some momentum in hiring people, and just basic marketing 101 that I wasn't doing, in terms of exposure. So I would say for me, it's just to be consistent. Consistency is huge. And just staying really dedicated to the process. And I think really paying attention to what you're doing and measuring it, and making sure that what you're doing is actually moving the needle.
I like that. I like that. So marketing and then identifying kind of really impactful action.
Mhm.
I love it. Speaking of identifying really impactful action, what are the highest impact daily actions that you can take to tick the needle forward towards that dreaming goal of 2,000 members by March 2024?
I would say, again, biggest lesson that I'm doing more so, focus on your email marketing and getting
Mhm.
people on your email list. Your email list, your email list, your email list. Because I think one of the big things that happened for me, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, is when, what was it, last year, when Instagram went down for an entire day?
Yep.
And it was a good reminder that for those of us who, and I think that was another lesson I learned, is not focusing on your social media platforms to be where you build your business. That's not where you build your business. It's an aspect of your business. But if those things went away, and they're owned by someone else, but your email list doesn't always go away. Because even if you were to lose the social media platforms and they went down for like a day or two, or say a week, or however long, you still have your email list. That doesn't go. That's yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And
so I would say taking action, I would say taking daily action to build that list and to take it seriously and nurture those people that are there, who've taken the time to give you their email, who are looking to you for some answers to whatever that problem is like really taking care of those folks.
I gotcha. And are those daily actions running ads with a freebie? Is it sending cold DMs? Is it posting in Facebook groups? Is it writing good email copy? What are the very specific actions that are going to grow that list?
I'm hearing these two people who I've worked with, who one is an email marketer, one is in copywriting, and I'm hearing them in my head. So funny. I would say that definitely that how you write your emails is incredibly important. Your copy, paying attention to your copy and not making it about you, really knowing that you're speaking to an audience, you're talking to a real person, talk to one person, telling stories through your email, and definitely the ads, running ads to a freebie for sure.
I gotcha.
And I would one of the other biggest lessons that I've learned as of recently is taking what you have to offer. I think a lot of times some of us get very, what's the word I'm looking for? Hesitant to share our offers because we think we're sharing it too much. And what I have learned through experience, and what was kind of beat over my head by the people who I'm working with, is no, Shannon, you need to keep sharing it, keep sharing it, keep sharing it, because there are people who need it. Don't think of it as selling, which you're not. You have something to help people. So, shout it from the rooftops. So definitely that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've dabbled in the coaching space. Obviously, with this podcast, coaching is
Mhm.
kind of a natural back end business to this podcast, and I've kind of messed around with how I want my offer to look. And I'm Christian, so I'm like, okay, I could target Christian entrepreneurs. I could target college students. I could do this. I could do that. And I've put out offers to everybody, and what I've learned is that like most of the time, if I'm making an offer based on like my past experience and legit value I needed 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, um, it's going to help somebody. It's going to add value to somebody. But the key is that marketing. Like there would be times when I sent out just cold DMs, just a cold DM message, not even the greatest copy, but somebody came back and they were like, "Thank you for sending me this message. Like I'm so glad you have this resource for me." And then like we
Yes.
got into conversation. And so it's just a matter of like staying consistent with that marketing and realizing how important that marketing is, and then having the confidence in your offer, like you were saying. So,
Yes. 100%. And I think that's one of the things I have learned, because I always, come from this place of, and I think it's my own experience, and where I came from in my other career is I always had this hesitancy in thinking, well, I don't want people to think that I'm just trying to sell them something. And that's a mindset shift I've really had to get over. And really it speaks to what you're saying is like, there are people who are looking and searching. And, even just take Instagram, when I'm sharing in my stories or sharing in a post, not everyone's going to see that. And so I really had to get over this mindset of keep sharing it, because there are people who need to see it and they may not have seen it. And another thing is funny. I was on LinkedIn today and I forget who it is that I follow. I'm following some really great people. I wish I could remember who it was, but they were talking about just the importance of repurposing, even something that you talked about 2 months ago, because there's an audience out there who's completely missed when you posted that. They never saw it. Only
yeah,
a certain percentage does. So don't be afraid to just keep talking about it on repeat, because what did they say? It takes seven times
seven
hearing
touch.
you or
Yep,
content. Yeah. So
one hundred
you just
percent.
got to keep going. Consistency is so big.
It is. It is. It's really big. Um, just curious, do you know how many people you would need on your email list to get to that 2,000 members in a year? Like, do you know what percent of people typically convert from your email list into a
I
customer?
want to say, isn't the conversion like, is it 5%? Or is it higher than that? I might be, I don't know. I'm bad with conversions. I would say it would have to be up there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So if you're trying to hit 2,000 people at a 5% conversion rate, what is that? What even is that? 40,000 on the email list?
We're looking at, yeah. I mean, I could be wrong, I think there might be some other factors, but I think it also depends upon, what I've learned in working with, I would say my marketing team, and Sarah Berry is her name, who's an email marketing specialist, and she's wonderful by the way. So shout out to her. Um, she talks about, just the importance of increasing your open rate. So you could have all these people on your email list, but if they're not opening the email and you're not speaking to them and really identifying with their struggles and what they're searching for and what their problem is, and speaking to them like an actual human, and also sharing your own story, that you understand their struggle, they're not going to convert. So there's so many variables in that, but that has been one of the biggest pieces too that I've learned.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, I think I was listening to Russell Brunson and he was talking about how some email lists, you can have 200,000 people on an email list, but if you're only getting a like 1% open rate and then like 10% of those people are closing, you're not
Yes.
as you're not doing as well as somebody who has like a 10,000 email list, but 8,000 of those
Yeah,
people are opening and it's a higher ticket offer. And so they're making $50,000 per client as opposed to $50 per client. And so it's just like the size of your email list, it really is something you have to hone in and individualize to your business. Cause honestly, you could have 5,000 women that just love you and 2,000 of them join the membership. And that could be your whole email list, 5,000 and 40%
exactly.
convert.
Exactly. Well, it's the same thing as I know, and Lewis Dalton is the other person who I work with, and they both have talked a lot about how, you could have someone, an influencer with, say, 100,000 people on their social media on Instagram, but they're getting zero conversions. Like no one's buying anything from them. Or you could have a very small, like maybe 10,000 or under number of followers that are following you on Instagram, but they're very engaged
Yeah.
and buying everything that you are putting out. So it really comes down to how engaged is your audience with you? Are you taking care of them? Are you nurturing them? Are you actually speaking to their pain points and delivering solutions?
Yeah. 100%.
Mhm.
I love it. Well, if there were one or two people that you can meet right now, and this could be a specific person or a type of person, and they'd really help you take that next step toward your dreams and goals, who would they be and how would they do it?
When I first saw this question, the first person who came into mind was Mel Robbins, who I love.
Yep.
She's always great. And I just like watching her on Instagram, even though I'm a coach. And I think it's just how inspirational she is. And I would say it's just really her whole way of saying, hey, I'm just like you. You can do this. If I can do it, you can do it. And so I would say it would just be the reminder to say, stop with the negativity, stop with the I can't. Yes, you can. Just put one foot in front of the other. So that's one person. And honestly, from a more spiritual standpoint, truly it would be the Dalai Lama if I was going to dream big. And just a reminder of what's really important for me in terms of why I am here on this planet and what I have to give.
There we go. Mel Robbins and the Dalai Lama.
I know.
I love it. I love it. Let's see. Going back to 2,000 subscribers, 40,000 person email list. Just curious. Do you know how much money you would have to spend on ads on the freebie to get that 40,000 within the year?
Honestly, I'm going to take a really wild guess just for my own experience and listening to people who have taught Facebook ads. And I would say the number is it's a pretty big investment. It's a big investment. You're talking thousands of dollars. I would say anywhere. I'm going to take a guess anywhere between probably $5,000 to $10,000 in ads.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. That's actually in my head to get the 40,000 on the email list. With my experience with Facebook ads, maybe I just suck at running ads. I'll get like $10 per lead.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're getting $10 a lead, you might be putting up $400,000 to get that $40,000 person email list.
Yeah. And again, I am no ads expert by any stretch of the imagination. And I would say that at this point, I get help with that because it's become so complicated. I remember when I first started my coaching business, it wasn't even close to as complicated as it is now. There's so many variables. But I would say, it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark. But it's definitely in the thousands, I would say. But again, it's all in how you're presenting the ad, how the ad is written, the copy for the ad, and how much you really. And again, I can hear Sarah and Lewis in my head. It's how much, because what they also drilled into my head is doing the research. You've got to do your research, which means really finding out with the people you want to serve what they're truly, really struggling with. What are their pain points? What are they really struggling with? What are they searching for? What are the answers to? What are the answers to the questions they're asking? And they just, in my head, research, Shannon, research, going on Reddit, really talking to people, talking to your current customers, your clients, your students, and asking them, how am I serving you? Is there anything I could change? And constantly getting that feedback as well.
Yeah. So it's literally just going on Reddit, getting on the forums and commenting on people's posts, huh?
Mm-hmm. Research. And, and it's also looking at that, doing different keyword searches and looking into what questions are being asked on Reddit. Mm-hmm.
Dang. Yeah. That's some intense time right there.
Uh-huh.
Gotcha. Well, Shannon, I'm going to challenge you to do this. Whoever your marketing person is, ask them how much money you would need to spend to get that 40,000 person list.
Well,
in the way that your mentors told you. Don't just get some whatever list, but a targeted kind of high chance of engagement list. And then I want you to email me the number by the end of the week.
Okay.
Awesome. Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm both curious. I want to hold you accountable, but I'm also curious just at what the number is. So
yeah, I will.
Awesome. Well, now we're going to jump into our Thriving Three. And the first question is, what's your favorite book, movie, or podcast? Pick one.
Okay, so I had to think about this. So one of my favorite book is called Warrior Pose: How Yoga Literally Saved My Life by Brad Willis, aka Bava Ram. And that book is amazing. I highly encourage anyone to read it. It's a true story and an incredibly inspiring story of how we can actually heal ourselves, and the power the body has, and we have to heal ourselves. Podcast, I would say it's P.S. We Expire with Morgan Motzinger, and she is also an incredibly inspiring woman. I really, really encourage you all to go listen to her. She's got an inspiring story and is an amazing woman. And movie The Blindside, and that's just one. And it was really, really hard for me to choose. But I chose that just because, again, it's a true story and it's an inspiring story of overcoming, which is a theme of mine.
Have you ever been told you kind of look like Sandra Bullock from The Blind Side?
I have. That's so funny.
As soon as you
I
said that
have
movie,
been.
I was like, yeah, she kind of looks like Sandra Bullock. That's
I
awesome.
love
It is a
it.
really great movie about overcoming. I love the movie. It's so solid. So solid.
It's so good. Yes. And the fact that it's true makes it even better.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like I looked him up after I watched the movie and I was like, oh yes. He's like still alive, well, thriving, all that good stuff. So
I
awesome.
know, I loved it.
What is one way you like to take care of yourself?
I would say alone time is definitely what I need. Just really taking care of, putting myself first and doing that, whether I'm meditating or just exercising, doing yoga, going for a walk. I would say just being by myself in order to just process my thoughts and just really be with me, because I'm definitely an introvert, and that's something that introverts need very much, is that alone time. Big, big, big.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what is one action step you can take right now or continue to take if you're already doing it to meet either Mel Robbins or the Dalai Lama?
Oh, oh, wow. I think to meet Mel Robbins, it would be just keep commenting on her posts and, wherever I can find her, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, but just continue being present, in her sphere, if I was to dream big. The Dalai Lama, I don't have an answer for that one. That would have to be divine intervention, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think the Dalai Lama is doing right now?
I know when I think of him, I think of him probably sitting in quiet and doing his own practice for himself. I don't, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah,
Helping another human.
there we go. There we go.
Mhm.
Well, now we got our final series of questions, and these
Mm.
can get a bit personal. We've already kind of um, stepped into it a little bit earlier in the show, but
Right?
if at any time you don't want to answer any of these, just be like, I'm a pass. I'll be like, okay, cool. So, what is one limiting belief that continues to pop up in your life, if any? I know we talked about worthiness earlier. Is that the one you want to go with, or do you want to mention a different one?
I would say being enough
Hmm.
is a big one. Am I enough to help women? Is the skill set that I have, what I have to offer, is it enough? Is it good enough to help people? That's something that always pops up for me, because I think that our perspective of ourselves obviously is very different than people outside of us. And I know what's interesting is when you do start to look at your marketing and your message, when you are putting yourself and your offers out into the world, that's one question you want to ask people is, what are my strengths? And sometimes when you have those things reflected back to you, you're kind of like, oh, it's kind of shocking, like, oh wow, you see me that way, because we don't see ourselves sometimes the way that others do. So definitely that.
Mm, I gotcha. I gotcha. And I noticed you talked about a little bit about putting your offer out there into the world and having it reflected back to you. Do you have any actions that reinforce that belief that you're not enough, that you're not worthy? And so this is like you have the belief, I'm not worthy. And then you have some thoughts about it, you have some feelings from that belief, and then you act based off of those feelings of not being enough. Any actions in your life like that? Maybe they happen once a year.
Mhm. Honestly, I would say procrastination is a big one.
Mhm.
That's where I think you can really get yourself stuck in procrastinating and not moving forward. but I'm not. But the thing I would say about me is, as much as I might have that moment, I'm quick to get myself out of it.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
much so. Yeah. I don't stay there long.
Yeah. I like it. And how do you get yourself out of that when you realize you're in it?
It's honestly is I coached myself and really coming back to honestly what I will tell myself in my head is, you know what, get over yourself. It's not always about you, and you're here for a reason, and you're here to share your voice for a reason, and there are people who could benefit from what you have to offer, and we all do. Every single one of us walking the face of the earth, we're learning and teaching each other in some form or fashion. And so it's to just get out of your own way and realize that it's not always about me. It's not about me. It's about what I'm here to share and trusting on my own path.
There we go. There we go.
Mm.
And if you were to change that limiting belief of not being enough into an abundant phrase that really spoke to your heart, you're hearing it the way that you need to hear it, what would that phrase be?
I love this question because it's something that I've been really focusing on this past year with all the change in my life. And it's one I keep coming back to, literally. And it is, and I believe this to my core, whatever's meant for you, you will never be able to F it up, because whatever's meant for you will be for you. And what's not meant for you will go, and lovingly say goodbye to it, because I believe that everything is divinely timed, that whatever you're called to do, it's from the divine. And so trust that, and trust your path, that what is meant for you and your highest good and the highest good of all will always be for you, and whatever's not for you will fall away. So you, in the end, don't really have to worry about it.
I love it. We got one last question for you. Are you ready for it?
Uh-huh.
All righty. I'm trying to shorten this question. I have a lot of pretext for this question because a lot of people have gotten confused about it, but I'm gonna try and shorten it right here. How do we create an environment not to make the choice for people that they can change for the better, but create an environment around them to help them change for the better? Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. And when I was thinking about this, because I saw that question, for me, it's two things. From a therapist perspective, in my own experience, is that I think that in order for someone to want to change, we have to be in a state of discomfort, because it's when we're really comfortable, we're not going to see a reason to move or change.
Hmm.
So it first has to start with some kind of, we move when we're in pain, and we move when we're uncomfortable, because we are finding a way out. And as humans, we're so adaptable that it's very easy for us to adapt to whatever we're in, and we can get comfortable very quickly. So I think that's, first of all, that has to be a piece of it. And number two, you have to believe that you're worthy of that change. And so to answer it with those two things there, it's creating an environment for people where it's safe for them where they can look at the things that's causing the pain or discomfort in a way where they know change is possible without judgment or shame, where they have a place to be seen and heard without that being a part of the process. Because I think that's what ends up hindering people from change, is I'm going to be judged, I could be rejected, I might be shamed. What will the people in my life think? Will my friends and family judge me? Whatever it is people are wanting to change, there's so much fear around the end result and the outcome. So if you could have an environment where that is not there, and have that space to be able to get really curious about yourself, like I said earlier, and be kind of an objective observer of yourself, to explore yourself without that judgment, it opens up so many doors for your just ability to, like, you know, look at yourself and get really honest with yourself, because we are all flawed. No one's perfect. Every single one of us is flawed.
Mic drop. There we go. Well, Shannon, thanks so much. That's all we got for you. Is there anything
Thank
else
you.
you want to chat about before we sign off?
No, I just want to tell you thank you very much. And this has been such an interesting conversation. We touched on so many things and I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, yeah. It's always a good time having people on the show and just, getting to hear about them, their dreams and goals, and see if I can help them get there. So
I
awesome.
appreciate it so much.
Of course, of course. Yeah. And what is the best way for people to contact you?
I would say they can find me. Easiest way is Instagram. If you're on Instagram, and you can find me at Shannon E. Swanson or my website at shannoneswanson.com.
There we go. Well, if you guys are listening to this and you loved what Shannon had to say, make sure to check her out on her website or on her Instagram. Both of those will be down in the show notes. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you on the next one. And on that note, we're out.